Sometimes even good people can make a mistake. And when it happens, it's one of the most intense and emotional experiences of your life. It could be a DUI, or maybe you were in the wrong place with the wrong people at the wrong time. Or perhaps you just did something stupid at the spur of the moment without even thinking, and now you're in trouble with the law. Well, you need experienced legal help right away so you don't become a victim of the criminal justice system. Even good people can make a mistake, and if you, a friend, or a loved one has been accused of a crime, don't make another mistake by hiring the wrong attorney for the kind of help you need. You need to visit toddjohnslaw.com. That's toddjohnslaw.com, and then call Attorney Todd Johns today. Attorney Todd Johns has decades of experience helping good people like you who have made mistakes or bad decisions and will stand by you every step of the way. toddjohnslaw.com.
Judy's Journeys is an online travel agency specializing in family vacation planning. Now booking 2024 and 2025 vacation packages for theme parks, cruise lines, all-inclusive resorts, and more. Judy's Journeys books Disney hotel and resort packages, car rentals, excursions, and flights so that you can make amazing memories and enjoy all of the rides and attractions you love. Judy's Journeys also books universal vacation packages, all-inclusive resort vacations, cruises, and land tours for families and small groups. Family vacation doesn't just mean mom, dad, kids, and grandparents. It can also be a family-friendly environment for an adults-only vacation. Visit www.judysjourneys.net to book your next family vacation. Book before June 30th, 2024 to receive a free gift. And we thank Judy's Journeys for sponsoring That's Enough Out of You. Hello and welcome to That's Enough Out of You. I am your host, Bill Rader, and joining me, as he does each and every week, is my co-host, Sean Kane. Sean, what's going on?
Billy Braids, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, we're doing pretty good. Can't complain. We're doing video now, Sean. We're like moving into the big time here. Our technology. We've been doing this for a little while now with our Patreon exclusive show, the Speakeasy. So people are seeing us on Patreon. But I don't know if this is the first or second show that we're on video.
Well, the first would have been the panel.
The panel, right? So it'll be I guess a few weeks.
Then we had a couple others though, Billy.
So it'll be a few weeks, but I think this might be the first one. Well, no, we did the panel with guests, but we have a guest on today. But Sean, before we get started, I just want to, of course, mention our Patreon again. If you are interested in supporting the show, you can go to Patreon. What is it? Patreon.com/ That's Enough Out of You, right? And they can.
I don't have enough. I don't have it on me, but
well, you'll find it. Search for our podcast on Patreon.
All over social media.
If you're interested, Sean's got links all over the place, and $1 gets you in the door. $1 a month gets you in the door. We've got exclusive show on there that we do on a weekly basis, and some other stuff going on with the Patreon, and there'll be more as we build it up more and more, and as we get some more support, we'll be able to do some additional things. So. Definitely check us out on Patreon and check us out on social media. We're all over the place. What else, Sean? What else you want to promote today?
I'd say we get right into our guests, Billy.
Right in? All right, let's do it.
Let's get right into it, buddy.
All right.
Promotions.
All right. So joining us this week, he's returning. We had him on a few months ago, but Matt Crumpton returned. So Matt, welcome back to That's Enough Out of You.
Welcome back.
Hey, thanks, guys. Appreciate you having me on. It was a good time last time. You guys both, you're knowledgeable on the case, so it's always fun to, it's one thing to go on a show and people go, so tell me, were there 2 shooters? Or wow, tell me, so Oswald acted alone. It's another thing when you're getting down into the minutia, and that's when it's really fun. It's really fun when a very small percentage of the audience understands what you're talking about, but you're talking about things you never get to talk about. That's exciting.
Exactly.
Agree.
So
All
yeah,
right.
good to be here. Good to be here.
Yeah. Good to have you. So Matt, I want to start off because we didn't get to talk about this the last time you were on. You were a part of the documentary that was recently on Paramount Plus called "What the Doctors Saw." Of course, they're talking about the doctors at Parkland Hospital in what was a trauma room
One.
trauma room one, and it was a fascinating. I think I had seen a few interviews before. I think there was like a panel interview years ago with a couple of the doctors that were there. And, you know, what I remember from that was the stories about, you know, Jackie sitting outside the room covered in blood, you know, and how there were so many people in that room that, you know, the doctors that were supposed to be doing their job had to like wade through a bunch of people in order to get to JFK. Just so many, you know, so many things that you would never even think about, but the reality hits you when you hear those stories. And so you were involved with that. And you know, I hate when people ask, because this isn't really a question, but if you could just kind of tell us a little bit about how you got involved with that, and you know what it was like doing that doc.
Yeah, sure. So I received this happened. I was invited to be on the film in April of 2023, April of last year. That's when they reached out to me. Maybe it was March actually, and I did some video chats with them, and then they decided they wanted to work with me in April. Came up to Cleveland and did a whole day of shooting with them, about like 6 hours. And I didn't really know how they were going to use my content. I didn't know how they were going to position me. You know what I mean? Because you know, it's kind of funny. The what they ended up doing, I thought was hilarious. And Barbara Shearer, she's great. I've become friends with her, the director, the one that put it together. But I ended up being sort of the guy in the middle, right? So I was sort of like moderate conspiracy guy, right? That's because, and what's hilarious is they get these two experts that are clearly the experts, and they're sort of on polar opposite sides, right? You've got Dr. Michael Baden, who's this,
Right.
you know, renowned forensic pathologist, and he was on the HSCA medical panel, the head of the HSCA medical panel, I believe, the same one that Cyril Wecht was the dissenter on. And then we have Doug Horn, who was the head of the medical records, the military records, which there's a large overlap between the military records and the medical records, but he was the head of the military records for the Assassination Records Review Board, and he's definitely, you know, a critic of the Warren Report, let's say. And but he has, you know, theories on the there's one particular area where I am not persuaded by you know what Doug says, because what's funny is I actually agree with Doug Horn on way more than I disagree with him on. There's this thing on like, was there a helicopter that took the real body while there was an
Yeah,
empty casket that came in.
that was
And I
fascinating.
yeah, so I'm not saying that there weren't two caskets. I think there is evidence that there were two caskets. And I'm also not saying there were two bodies, but there were two caskets. That's for sure. Maybe there were two bodies. I don't know. But anyway, my whole thing, the reason I think they liked having me on and they saw me as a differentiator was because I had this one area of disagreement with Doug Horn where I'm like, I don't know, man, if there was a chopper that landed, I need one witness, I need one document, I need
Right,
something.
right.
Right. And that's all. And maybe he has it. And so I always say that I'm open to hearing that, because I did meet Doug and like right after this came out. And like actually the day after it came out, I met him in an elevator in Pittsburgh at the conference.
Wow.
And I thought it was going to be awkward, but he was super cool and it was great and it was all good. So my role was to go, hey, don't listen to the expert forensic pathologist who was there. Don't listen to the guy who was there with the medical records and studied this his whole life. Listen to me, because I've had a podcast for 3 months. You know? So you got to have a little human. I mean, it's good. I am trying hard, and I know more about this than most people, and
Sure.
I spend about 25 hours a week on this. But the reality is there are, I would say, 1,000 to 3,000 people that know a lot more than me, maybe 10,000. I don't know. That's I'm saying, like, because the more you get into it, you're like, I didn't know that. What's
Right.
cool is as you get deeper down, you start to make connections. You're like, I didn't know about that, but that makes sense in light of this, this, and this. Oh, I know where to categorize that. Now here's a fifth support for this proposition type thing. But anyway, so I'm just kind of rambling on. But the film I thought was great. The whole point of the film is juxtaposing. Ah, that's the word.
There
Comparing.
you go.
Okay.
Words
Um,
words are hard.
words are hard. Comparing the Parkland doctors, what they said versus the autopsy. And so we know that, when I talk to people about, like, just the introductory things on the case, it is a bit of a Rorschach test in a way. And I think the especially if you're not going to spend 100 hours on it, if you're only going to spend an hour and look at the super highlights, it's definitely, I think, a Rorschach test at that level. And I think the first big question is, okay, the medical evidence, what's more likely? Is it more likely that 43 doctors, nurses, orderlies, etc., at both Parkland and Bethesda were wrong when they said there was a hole in the back right side of the president's head?
Right.
Or is it more likely that there was fraud in the autopsy, because the autopsy shows that the back of the head is intact?
Mhm.
So the thing is, you got to make a choice, and both of those sound like unreasonable positions, right? So it's like, 43 people said it, they all said the same thing. Were they all wrong? You know what I mean? And so, of course, that begs the question, well, is there any evidence of fraud at the autopsy? You can't just say what's more likely. Like, what about the substantive evidence? And there is, there's plenty of evidence. I think my friend Jim DiEugenio and Oliver Stone do a nice job laying it out in their film, recently filmed Destiny Betrayed. It's got like 3 or 4 different names. There's a lot of different versions, but the new Oliver Stone one that was done by DiEugenio is quite good on those topics. And just high level, you got a guy named John Stringer who took pictures of the autopsy, but he comes in and he's talking. He speaks to the Assassination Records Review Board, and they show him the photos, and he goes, that are in the National Archives of the autopsy, and he goes, these are not the pictures I took.
Right.
Right.
The
Yep.
brain, yeah, he's like, the brain that I took a picture of was I think it was uh what he didn't use bacillor views was one thing. The other thing is that the brain that he took a photo of, that it was mostly like blown out. There was a lot of it missing, and the brain that's in evidence and the archives, in the photos anyway, is mostly intact. But the main thing is the film. He recalled the precise type of film that was used, and he used something called Ansco film, and the film that was used in the archives was a different type of film. We also have Robert Knudsen, who says that he took photos. So it seems like there's 2 separate autopsies. There's also a third guy that says he took photos, who's slipping my mind at the moment. But so yeah, I mean, it does get really cloudy, and trying to figure out exactly what happened. I think that's where Doug Horn spent a lot of his work, and but that is the challenge when you try to figure out precisely what happened. But I think what we can know is that if you're asking the guy that supposedly took the photos, did he take them? And he goes, no. Okay, well, that's a red flag. All right,
Right.
anybody else? Well, what about Sandra Spencer? She's the one who supposedly developed the photos. And they asked her the same questions, and she goes, no, this is not what I recall. Not what I recall. And then she actually brought a sample of the photo paper that was used, because she just thought it would matter one day, and she brought it with her, and she could prove that it was a different photo paper than she used. So that's witness number 2. There's also Ebersol, who I forget exactly what he said, but he said some things that kind of make it, make the official story look iffy. And then my favorite one is Dr. David Mantic. Okay, you guys familiar with the work of Dr. Mantic?
Yeah, absolutely.
And my thing on that is, all right, so just for those who don't know, Dr. Mantic, he's this like, he's got a lot of different titles, but he's basically he's a cancer doctor who's an expert at x-rays. Okay, that's like sort of his thing. So he goes to the National Archives and he brings this instrument with him called an optical densitometer that measures the bone density based on sort of how bright the bone is in the photos. And when he took the photos, or when he used that instrument on the X-rays of the back of the head, there's like this big bright white spot in the right rear of Kennedy's head. And according to Mantic, there's a patch there because the bone density is like thousands of times more than the area around it, such that it's impossible for it to be authentic. So okay, so I saw that from Mantic and I thought, wow, that's really some claim. Because I'm an attorney by trade, and David Mantic is an expert. So he meets the standard. You could put him on the stand and he would be a qualified expert for this issue. So on a lot of issues in the case, firearms, for example, we have competing experts. Okay. We have things that are, back and forth, back and forth. So I thought, all right, there's got to be some competing expert because this is too big of a claim to go unanswered. Okay. And so I go to the Bible of Warren Report Defense, which is Vincent Bugliosi. And I find Dr. Mantic, and what's better about Bugliosi than Posner is Posner wrote his book in 1993.
Right.
Bugliosi wrote it late enough that at least he has a chance to cover some of the stuff that came out after the ARRB.
Right,
so I tend to rely on Bugliosi more for cross-checking. But anyway, so I go to Bugliosi on David Mantic, and of course it's on the CD-ROM, so I have to get out the stupid thing and plug it in. And I go, so then I find it. I find his footnotes on David Mantic. And here's what he says. So there's 2 paragraphs on Mantic. The first paragraph is just listing all of his qualifications. It's like, David Mantic's a brilliant, all the awards he's won. He just talks about how great he is. The next paragraph, he goes, and so it's hard to understand how somebody so smart could believe something so stupid. And it's like, hold on now.
Bugliosi.
Well, hold on now, man. You don't have a competing expert? You don't have a competing expert on David Mantic.
Wow.
So that was shocking to me. And here's what's fun: I got to meet Dr. Mantic, and I read him. I took a screenshot of it and I showed it to him on my phone at a happy hour in Dallas, and he was pretty stoked. It was cool. I thought it was funny.
That's good. That's good.
So yeah, but yeah, so anyway, on JFK with the Dr. Saw, that it's the battle of competing evidence. Now I'll say this. I at first, before I was aware of all of the evidence of potential fraud, okay, which is, I will say, like, it's hard to swallow at first, because at first I thought there was probably a conspiracy of some sort, but I was not willing to entertain the idea of fraud. But the reality is, either the Parkland doctors are right and there was a fraudulent autopsy, there's some sort of shenanigans, or Oswald did it alone. Those are your 2 options,
Right.
or maybe it was someone else shooting from the back or whatever, right? But the thing for me that really pushed me over the edge, that I think in the medical evidence, that aside from all the things I just laid out, the cerebellum, okay? This evidence on the cerebellum is really a smoking gun to me.
I agree.
And so cerebellum, it's like a acorn type thing. Your brainstem, it's the very bottom of your base of your head here, right? And there are niner. Okay, I list them in the episodes where I cover this. 9 Parkland doctors who say that the cerebellum was significantly damaged. Okay, and one of those doctors is the head brain surgeon, Dr. Kemp. Okay,
right.
So the counter argument to that is they were mistaken. Okay, maybe 1 or 2, not 9, not Dr. Kemp.
Right.
So that's to me is one that's as we call it, a chokehold, right?
Yeah,
An escape.
absolutely.
And when they weighed the brain was more than the average person's brain would have been, and that's impossible. If you see, we see
intact,
the head getting exploded. We see the brain getting splattered.
Right.
Well, you can't have it both ways. Either you think that Kennedy was this great president with a big brain, or you don't. So what side of the argument are you taking?
Yep.
I'm just kidding. No, you're right. That's right. Yeah, of course. If his brain got blown out, it's not going to be heavier than an average brain, even if it was before, or whatever you want to argue. So, yeah. And on the bullet, like, here's what's fun about the magic bullet. I'm kind of slightly off topic, but people want to say that the smashed into went through Kennedy's body, maybe left none in Kennedy, left no grains in Kennedy's body. Goes through Connolly's body, hits a ribs, wrist, thigh, and we know that it loses grains in his wrist and in his thigh. Okay, but they got a lot of those grains out of his wrist. Okay, and they're big pieces. They're like big pieces of lead.
Right.
Okay, there's no, if this bullet's a puzzle and you got the bullet and the piece that came out of this bullet, show me where the piece goes on the bullet.
Right.
And at first, and I was like, well, obviously it's the edge here. You can look at, if you zoom in, you can see the bullet, the very edge of it's cut off. Well, that's actually where they trimmed it to do the lab analysis. So even that part is not a blemish. That's them trimming it. So something, man.
Yeah.
But the film was great. It was a good experience. I'm very grateful to Barbara for giving me that opportunity. I mean, I think it's helped the show get listeners, and it was a great opportunity for sure.
Yeah.
One of the things,
and I think,
go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
No, I just, Sean and I were talking, and it was really the first time that you were seeing evidence, solid evidence of a conspiracy on, a mainstream network. I mean, Paramount Plus, CBS, and it really is the first time that we've seen that.
I was, so I didn't have a chance to review any of this. I also wasn't told what my role was going to be, and going into it. Actually, that's not true. She told me what it ended up being, but I didn't believe her because it seemed too good to be true. Okay. And also I'm not in the first like 45 minutes of the movie.
Right.
But the whole second half is just my stupid face and my gut mostly, to be honest with you. But yeah, I was worried that she wasn't going to be able to tell the truth, or she was going to have to kind of dumb it down and not make it clear. But I thought she did a really nice job. And I was surprised that the reception from it was generally like positive. But they didn't make the connection that, wait a minute, if either these doctors are lying or the autopsy is fraudulent. Like that's either or.
Right.
So yeah.
One of the things you said earlier, Matt, about being relatively new to the JFK field, and researchers that know more. The thing about it is, I've been researching this since high school. I've been into deep into the rabbit hole, so to speak, and I've been new to podcasting about it. Obviously, me and Bill just started about a year and a half, but I don't think people realize how much information there is on this case. Like, you get into it and you think like you're into it a year or two, or I watched 5 documentaries, or I read 5 books. I mean, you could read hundreds of books on this, and there's still information that you don't have. Like, you're always learning new things, and with the AR beaters, always new things, and they're just, the information is fluid, and you got to keep up on it. There's so much information on this case; it's really unbelievable.
Yeah,
I think
you're
don't
right.
understand that.
That's true. I mean, even so right now I'm working on, I just finished General Walker shooting, and I got a couple of recap and rebuttal episodes that are going to buy me some time to do some research, because I'm working on New Orleans right now, and New Orleans is so dense. I mean, there's so much stuff going on in New Orleans. Sure. I'm going to save a lot of the Cuban Exile deep dive for season 3. Season 3 is going to be, if not Oswald, then who? So I'm going to save a lot of the Cuban Exile stuff in New Orleans that I could cover right now for later. But even so, I'm just going to like keep a super tight focus on Oswald for now. But I mean, there's just so many different things going on, so many players, so many people. It's crazy, man.
I want to get into, because I've been going back and watching a lot of your episodes, and great job in the podcast. It's fantastic. And I want to go into some of the specifics tonight. But before we do, what were you talking about earlier when, before we came on the air, you were talking about Josiah Thompson, and you had a story. So let's get into that.
Yeah. Okay, so Josiah Thompson, who I was able to meet and briefly interview, by the way, he's a little bit curmudgeon-y these days, but he's really actually kind if you can get his attention. So I thought that he was a nice guy. But anyway, he wrote this. He was originally a correspondent for Life, so he was a sort of a official story guy, and he was hired by Life magazine to report on the ground. And in doing that, he became a critic, kind of became aware of the facts. and they didn't want him to report on that anymore. So he ended up writing a book called 6 Seconds in Dallas, and actually that book resulted in a lawsuit because he published the entirety of the Zapruder film in his book, all the frames. And of course, Life had bought it to stop the publication of it. There's this great fair use case that comes from Josiah Thompson that I rely on for anything I show. I'm like, oh, this Josiah Thompson case says that pretty much anything touching on the JFK assassination is pretty close to fair use. So, but what I was bringing up is, as it relates to Dr. Michael Baden, Baden says, Baden's a forensic pathologist. He's on the HSCA medical panel. He says that there could have been a second shot from the rear, a second headshot, okay, that would have come from the rear. And but the only way that's possible is if there were it would have had to be at a very specific period of time, and it would have had to have come from the back. And this is what Josiah Thompson's theory is, because basically he's if you look, it's really gory, because after you see the first headshot, I mean, it's hard to look at. I mean, obviously we've all looked at it a lot, I'm sure, but if you look after that happens and he sort of leans over, he gets hit again, and his head kind of goes forward again, and you can't really figure out why is that happening. And it's at the exact moment when Baden says that that's when another shot there would have been a second shot. So the idea is, if the first headshot came from the front, the second headshot could have come from the back, and that would explain why there is debris in the front, right? Because there were some bullet fragments in the front seat, I believe, and just blood and brain matter as well. But clearly, looking at witness testimony, in particular, all of the police that were in the V formation,
motorcycle cops,
the motorcycle cops,
they get
exactly the guys that are to the Kennedy's right, on both sides, didn't get anything on them. The guy that's directly to the left, I want to say Cheney. I forget. It could have been a different guy, either Cheney or Hargis. Those are the two that I'm talking about here. But the one that's closest gets just jacked, totally. He just gets hit with all of this. That's on the back left. The one that's to the left and behind him only has the left side of his uniform and his face covered in blood and brain. Why? Well, because the guy in front of him is blocking the right side. Right. So, yeah. So, and the other thing, you can look at the Zapruder film, but the Zapruder film, I don't know. I don't know that it's fake. Or that it's altered. There's a whole Dino Brugioni thing, and I really don't know where I land on that. I watched the America's Untold Stories with Robert Groden recently, and I know that those guys think that definitely didn't happen. I really don't know. And what Groden was saying, though, is that, conclusively, there's no way it could have happened because it was a different type of film, and he knows for sure. So, but the reason I'm bringing this up is we would expect to see a big blood and brain going backwards, shooting at the back of his head. But we don't see that. You don't see that. And I don't have a good answer for that. But you know what else you don't see? You don't see blood and brain shooting forward either.
True.
So what's going on?
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
So, yeah, anyway, it's very easy to go down a tangent in this case.
It is. But Matt, let's get into some of the specifics. So tonight I want to talk a lot about your episode 9 on the witnesses.
Okay.
Because that was a fantastic episode, and I want to get into some of the specifics. But first I want to talk about some of these characters in this case. Let's start with the Umbrella Man.
Hey, Sean?
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Let's just mention the name of the podcast, Solving JFK, right?
Okay.
And you can find it everywhere, right, Matt? I mean, it's on
every
Apple
platform.
Yep.
Yeah, we're on YouTube also.
YouTube. Yep.
I put out a video every week. The video takes me like an extra 4 hours, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah. That's what we're going to be up against. So.
It's annoying, but I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yep. Go ahead, Sean. Sorry.
So let's talk about the Umbrella Man.
Yeah. All right. So Stephen, I forget if it's Stephen Louis Witt or Louis Stephen Witt, but anyway, just zooming back. So there's a guy with an umbrella that we can see from all the photographs, and as the presidential limo approaches, he's pumping his umbrella up and down. Okay.
Right.
And so the Here's what's funny. Just as a quick aside, you guys ever seen the meme where like it's like the really dumb person, okay, and then like all the crowd who's like, so the dumb person's saying one thing, all the crowd is saying another thing, and then the really smart person like in the hood is saying the same thing the dumb person's saying. It's kind of like that with the Umbrella Man. So like the dumb person view of the Umbrella Man, sorry, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but like the dumb person view is, oh, he's out there shooting darts. The Umbrella Man is nefarious. You got to watch out for the Umbrella Man because he's going to shoot a poison dart at you, right? That's kind of what they tried to make it sound like he was doing. But and then sort of the moderate, like, or not the moderate, the mainstream, I guess, view of the Umbrella Man is, well, he came forward later. His name is Stephen Louis Witt, and he's an insurance salesman, and he was there that day to protest the actions of Kennedy's dad, vis-a-vis World War II. Kennedy's dad was the ambassador to the UK, I believe. It may have been a different England, yeah. And anyway, so it was supposed to be like Neville Chamberlain, the Umbrella, and that was why he was doing it. Okay. And the reason he was pumping it up and down as JFK came by, because he really wanted to see him and have like an epic troll. It's like, okay, that's weird, but it's plausible. Like I'm willing to entertain that. Okay. But now let's get to the guy in the hood at the end who's saying the same thing as the dumb guy. Well, the reason that the Umbrella Man is a little bit potentially nefarious for me is the interaction with him and the guy who became known as the dark complected man. Yeah, because you got this guy he's like a tall, skinny, probably Cuban looking guy. I mean, I don't really know, but he's certainly dark complected. And as the limo approaches, he's standing with a fist in the air, and he's right next to the Stemmons Freeway sign. Right. You can see him in the I don't know if it's in the Zapruder film, but maybe it's the there's a couple of really famous pictures where you see it clear as day. You see him with the fist, and you see the Umbrella Man there too. So after the shots are fired, and you see people either ducking for cover or running up the grassy knoll hill, these two guys are sitting by the curb, and like what I said in the podcast, which I think is a good metaphor, they're sitting by the curb like they're waiting on their mom to pick them up from soccer practice. They're just sitting there. Crazy. And they're sitting right next to each other.
Right next to each other.
Yeah. Okay. It's not like they're 4 feet apart. They sit next to each other. And when asked what was going on with that interaction before the HSCA, Witt, who supposedly is Umbrella Man, said that well, yeah, some guy came up and he was just mumbling all sorts of things. He called him, I forget, some term that is no longer acceptable to call black people. It was like one of those type things. And he was just very like derogatory towards the guy, but he's like, I don't know that guy. You think I would know a guy like that? But what the other thing is, as that guy, so then they leave, and as that guy gets up, he puts a walkie-talkie in his pants, is what it looks like to me. And then he's also talking on it. You can see him turn and talk, and there's a photo of it. Now people say, no, that's not true. You're seeing things, you're, whatever. But there were multiple people that were seen with walkie-talkies that day. There's a guy on the railroad bridge that's got a walkie-talkie as well. And I just think it's possible that Stephen Louis Witt is telling the truth, but I lean towards there being more going on with that because of the dark complected man. That's my take.
DK's Corner, located on 802 East Lackawanna Avenue in Oliphant, Pennsylvania. Visit DK's Corner for hot and cold sandwiches, soups, salads, pizza, and delicious breakfast, including breakfast sandwiches, specialty coffees, and DK's Razzle Dazzle flavor shaken espressos. And take it from me, the best cheesesteaks around. Follow DK's Corner on Facebook and Instagram, or call them at 570-209-0278 to find out about their daily specials and catering. Check out DK's Corner, Oliphant's little hoagie shop. And we thank DK's Corner for sponsoring That's Enough Out of You. That's DK's Corner in Oliphant, Pennsylvania. Are you thinking about selling your house? Well, Bob Connors, a realtor at Christian Saunders Real Estate, says, I can't sell your house, but I sure as heck can market it and get it from sell to sold. Call Bob today for great marketing and to get a ton of eyeballs on your house. Are you in the market to buy a home? Not sure where to start? If it looks like something you shouldn't buy, Bob's going to tell you that. Think you can't buy a house or have no idea where to start? Been there, done that. Bob will get you going in the right direction. You can reach Bob at 570-614-3624 or 570-335-9000. And you can find Bob on Facebook at Bob Connors-Realtor. Whether you call Bob or not, please remember, stay awesome, all you awesome humans, and be kind to each other. Bob Connors, the realest real estater. And thanks to Bob Connors and Christian Saunders Real Estate for sponsoring That's Enough Out of You.
Yeah, it's definitely a strange episode. I mean, it really is. Next, I want to talk about Eugene Hale Brading. Now, Brading is interesting because a lot of researchers refer to him as a mob guy, and I kind of take issue of calling him a mob guy, because one of the things we do on this podcast, besides JFK, I think our next wheelhouse would probably be organized crime. We do a lot of organized crime, and we talk about, the relationship the Irish gangster and the Jewish gangster have with the Italian mafia, Cosa Nostra. And Brading did have ties to Meyer Lansky, who was a Jewish gangster, but Lansky, I mean, he really had a lot of deep connections. He had connections to the Israeli Mossad. I mean, so to call him a mob guy when he's got really deep ties to the oil industry, especially people like the Hunts. And, when I look at him, Matt, I remember last time you said you were a fan of the show 24. Mm-hmm. If you remember episode or season 2 of 24, when they had that whole thing with the nuclear bomb and they were trying to blame it on Muslim terrorists, and it was behind the scenes, it was oil men that were behind the whole thing because they were trying to, protect their holdings in the Caspian Sea. And it was these oil men that hired this guy he ended up being in the Saw movies. He was the head villain. And to me, that's what I see in Eugene Hale Brading, a guy like that. Like, that's what he is. He's more of a hired gun like that big oil would use to do different jobs rather than a mob guy.
Right.
But let's get into Brading and what happens here with him.
Yeah, I mean, all I really had on Brading was an FBI report, I believe it was. So there's probably more relevant context on Brading that would probably be helpful. But he was in town to go visit. So the story is he's in town for some business, and he happens to be in Dealey Plaza, and then he asks a girl outside of the Daltex building,
right,
if he can go in to use the phone, and so he goes in, and an elevator attendant notices he's in there and tells the sheriffs, and he ends up being interrogated, not arrested, but he signs a statement, and there you go. That's pretty much it. But what's interesting is the person he was meeting with. I mean, obviously, you hear that someone's got potential mob ties, and they're standing there in front of the Daltex building, right when Kennedy's shot. It's you got to look there. Well, it turns out he was meeting with H.L. Hunt that day on some business. H.L. Hunt's a big oil guy who hated Kennedy, and his son is Lamar Hunt, who went on to own the Kansas City Chiefs and some professional soccer teams. I think any other team. Anyway, owned a bunch of teams. And anyway, the same day that H.L. Hunt was meeting with Lamar Hunt, Jack Ruby was also in Hunt's office. This is according to an FBI document. So that's pretty crazy. Brading worked out of the same office, the same floor of the same office building where David Ferry had been working months before the assassination. He was in suite 1701, and Ferry was in suite 1707. So that's the main parts that I covered on Brading. I mean, where I kind of land with him is that we don't have any evidence affirmatively that he fired a shot from there. But we can't rule out that he fired a shot from there. I don't think we can rule it out. I mean, it would have to be a silencer, though, I'll say. if he did. And I would want to see more information. I mean, I'm open to learning more about Brading. I think that'll probably be like a season 3 as I get deeper in the mafia side of things. But I do think that his presence there is suspicious, as he's meeting with H.L. Hunt and Jack Ruby. So I don't know what it was. I don't know if he was involved or if he was there to watch, but it would be surprising to me if in fact it was just a total coincidence. I don't think that it's just a coincidence.
Well, what do we
Or
always
that
say, Sean?
distraction, though.
What's
Yeah,
that?
coincidences take a lot of planning. is what
Right,
we
exactly.
say.
Yeah. Right.
But
That's right.
I see Brading, to me, looking down this, I went down this rabbit hole a long time ago with Brading, and to me, it's just a distraction. It's
Mm.
just a lot of times in this case, you have all these distractions that lead nowhere. And when you go down there, you go down this rabbit hole and you know, like the tramps and
Right.
stuff like that, you know, and you just get into this, well, maybe this tramp looks like E. Howard Hunt and this, and it's just such a distraction where it takes your eye off the ball.
Uh-huh. I luckily have never gone super far down the three. I actually didn't even cover the 3 tramps. I was like, crap, I didn't cover the 3 tramps. Oops. But I the more I did dig into it a little bit, and it seems to be what you're saying. I mean, it seems like there's nothing there, and they identified who all the people are. And I almost wonder, see, because sometimes when you quote unquote debunk a conspiracy, you're actually being more conspiratorial. I almost wonder, like, was it thrown in to confuse things?
Well,
The
that's
fact that
what I
these people
think.
look
Like
so
a lot of
similar.
times there is a lot of things, and with the tramps, I believe there's a Dallas police report that came out now identifying the 3 men.
Right. Yeah.
But the thing is, there's that picture that Colonel Fletcher Prouty identified of the tramps with the person walking by, and he identified him as General
Lansdale.
Lansdale.
Yeah.
So to me, that's an angle you should look down. People should be looking down to see if that was actually General Lansdale, because we now know he was in Denton, Texas, the day before the assassination, which is close to Dallas. So it's
That's
possible that,
North Dallas, basically. Yeah.
yeah. So I mean, to me, it's a distraction when you're looking, you know, looking at the tramp, spending all this time. There were so many books written about that. And the thing is,
Yeah.
it should have been looking at, was this person really at Lansdale? That's more important. So it's stuff like that to me
Sure.
that, you know, sometimes you get in these traps with this case.
Right. For
you
sure.
know? But
Definitely.
your episode 9, you know, the job that you did on the witnesses is really good. And the first one I want to talk about this fellow Holmes, because he turns out he gets some information, but then he turns out to be an FBI informant with some really interesting ties to Lee Harvey Oswald.
Well, yeah, Harry Holmes, it's hilarious that the Warren report quotes him because his office overlooks Dealey Plaza, and he's, you know, one of the prime witnesses for, hey, there's nothing going on there, you know, there was nothing happening on the grassy knoll or in the parking lot behind. But it turns out that, you know, so Harry Holmes is the postal inspector for Dallas. So he's an FBI informant. Like, as we study this case, we learned that many people at the post office, turns out a lot of people that work for unemployment commissions are FBI informants. You learn something new every day, or they were at that time anyway. But Holmes, really the thing that I think he is famous for, I mean, I guess these things he's known for, but he was at Oswald's interrogation,
Right.
and they actually they allowed him to be there for all of it on Sunday. And you zoom into how did that happen, and it's like he woke up in the morning and he was like going to church with his wife, and he's like, hey honey, I think they need me down at at the police department. So they let this like, what scenario are they going to allow a postal inspector in on any case? And I suppose you could say, well, he had information about, you know, whatever it is that he informed on. Okay, maybe, but so maybe you bring him in for the trial, right? But you're not going to have him there for all of the interrogation. That was puzzling to me. I still don't know exactly what to make of that.
And of course, he was copying Oswald's mail.
Right. Yeah. So he was we have proof that he was reading the outgoing mail.
Okay.
So that's what there's proof of. So the question is, because he's reporting on the outgoing, he's informing on these letters he's sending to different entities. And the question is, okay, so if they're reading the outgoing mail, we are to believe that they're not reading incoming mail from the same time, and if so, they would have received the gun. But yeah, I mean, honestly, on the see, here's my problem. I think I historically probably put too much weight into handwriting experts. Like in other words, I'm like, well, look, I'm certainly willing to say that the FBI is forging something, or that there's fraud somewhere if there's evidence, if there's proof, if there's witnesses. But I'm really hesitant to go, that doesn't fit everything else, so they must be wrong. But at the same time, handwriting analysis is not always 1,000% accurate. And so like really the main thing they're pegging Oswald on for the gun is it's all about the whole game is handwriting analysis. That's really all they have is their expert says that this is the guy, this is his signature. Because when you look at the other details, there's a lot of problems.
Sure.
And it's like the deposit slip is sent the same day. I'm sorry, the money order is deposited the day after it hits the bank, the day after it's sent. It's like you could believe that maybe it would arrive 2 days later, and then it's going to
Yeah.
process for a day. But the day after, I mean, I don't think it was overnight mail. It doesn't seem like that. We don't have any evidence of that. Also, like it's getting real granular, and I learned this from John Armstrong's book, but getting real granular. The stamps that are on that the order form are from a different post office division than where Oswald could have been when he was working. So it's a different branch that he would have had to drive like 4 miles to. So it's not possible that he could have gone there on the day that it was sent, because his time cards show that he was actually working the entire day at Jagger's Chow Stovall.
Right.
So, which I didn't cover, and I learned after the fact. But anyway, yeah. I forget how we got on that, but yeah, Harry Holmes is who we were talking about. That's what we we're
Right.
talking about.
Um, let's talk a little bit about Badgeman because
Yeah.
this is something I did a lot of research myself on, and now I think it doesn't really lead anywhere, but it's something that I think is important to just discuss. My first introduction to Badgeman, I remember reading about it in I believe Jim Marr's book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then I said, remember a documentary, and the person that was talking about Badgeman happened to be Gary Mack, and Gary
Mm.
Mack started off as a
Right.
pro conspiracy guy, and then he takes the job in the sixth floor depository building, and of course he becomes pro Warren Commission and really a nasty person to conspiracy believers after that.
Mm-hmm.
But let's talk about Badgeman and talk about that picture, the Mormon picture.
Yeah. So Badgeman, we're basically talking about the Mary Mormon photo, which is taken. She's in the infield of Dealey Plaza, looking up at the grassy knoll, pretty much at the moment right after Kennedy's about shot, I don't know if you see it right after. I think it's maybe just before
Yeah,
he's about to have the headshot.
right,
And if they've blown up the photo. By the way, this is a Polaroid, okay, so it's
right.
not the highest quality,
Oh,
but
no.
they've blown up the picture near the fence line, and it's not the very corner. It's a lot of people think that it's where the fence comes together. It's actually down a little bit right
Right.
behind where a tree was. But if you zoom in on it, sure enough, it does. And I hate like the Rorschach test. Like I'm in no position to tell somebody like what to think of a bunch of digital blurs,
Sure.
but it really does look to me. It literally looks like someone in a navy shirt holding a rifle right here
Sure.
with
The
a
picture that
badge
they
right
blew
here.
up,
That's
it shows
what
a
it looks
cop.
like.
He's in
Yeah,
it looks like a policeman outfit, and then there's a guy in a construction
yeah.
suit next to him. And then the third one who could possibly be a witness, Gordon Arnold, who
Uh-huh.
we could talk about.
Right. Yeah. The most persuasive thing for me vis-a-vis that is Josiah Thompson had Skinny Holland, who's one of the railroad witnesses. There were 4 railroad witnesses that saw a puff of smoke come from under the trees there,
Right.
and and all 4 of them said it, and then they didn't just say it; they took action. They ran over to it, right? But Thompson asked him to stand about where he saw the puff of smoke coming from, and he's wearing this like a hat like a lot of the folks used to wear back in the day. And he's right in that spot, and Thompson goes and stands where Mormon was standing, where she took the picture. And I'll tell you, Skinny Holland standing in that same spot, wearing that hat, looks exactly like the what we see in the picture when you zoom in. Now, what we're talking about here, to be clear, is a fence and then a little head coming up and a little thing of a hat coming up. So it's not like this is not the slam dunk, but that's totally consistent. Like it fits, but it doesn't prove it, is what I would say.
Okay. And how about the witness, Gordon Arnold?
Yeah, I was sour on Gordon Arnold, and my friend Jeff Crudell kind of made me be a little more open-minded
Okay.
to the idea that he could be legit. The challenge with him is that there's not any other photo. So he says he's in the grassy knoll, and a shot came from behind him. And before the shooting, he actually wanted to be up behind the fence line to get a view, but he was told by cops, like, get away from here, you're gonna get killed. And then he says that he saw basically a police officer with dirty fingernails with a gun after the shooting, and he was like shaking. Or no, he didn't have a gun. He had dirty fingernails and he was shaking, and he told him to get out of there, whatever. But Gordon Arnold, we don't have any proof that there's no other witnesses that say they saw him there. And then he went. He was about to be in the military, so he went to Alaska and he was gone. It's his story. So I I put him and Ed Hoffman in a similar category, which is it might be true, but it's so intensely disputed that it's not like if I'm ever having a debate with somebody with the Fred Litwins or Gerald Posners of the world or whatever, I would not raise that as an issue because I just think it's not proven, but it fits with everything. I mean, Ed Hoffman is the
Right. Talk about him.
yeah, I mean,
Let's get into him.
Ed Hoffman confirms what everybody who thinks that there were multiple shooters believes. I mean, he lays it out.
Right.
He says that and so who is Ed Hoffman? Ed Hoffman's a deaf mute.
Right.
So there's the rub. In 1963, people thought if you're a deaf mute, you're dumb. You don't
Right.
your opinion doesn't matter because it's not credible, right?
Right.
And basically he says that he saw the whole shooting happen. So specifically, he saw a suit man and railroad man. There's two
railroad
guys.
man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
So suit man and railroad man, and the suit man is standing there on the fence line, and right as the cars pull up, the railroad man gives him a gun, or like a long stick, and he puts it up like this, fires a shot, boom, puff of smoke comes out. He takes the gun, tosses it to railroad man. Railroad man catches it, twists it, breaks it down, puts it in a bag, runs down the train track. This is the Ed Hoffman story. And then when people come up to Grassy Knoll, the guy that fired the shot is there telling them, "Hey, nothing to see here." Right?
Right.
Well, this is exactly the story of Officer Joe Smith, who came up the hill, says he spoke to Secret Service.
Right.
And of Deputy Sheriff Seymour Weitzman,
Mm-hmm.
who says he spoke to Secret Service on the Hill. And there's a couple other people too, but I mean, to have two law enforcement say that's pretty powerful.
Absolutely.
So yeah, Hoffman reinforces that. There's also a guy, Tom Tilson and J.C. Price. Both of these witnesses say they see somebody running down the railroad track with a bag in their hand. I mean,
Tilson was an off-duty cop, right?
Yeah, Tilson was an off-duty cop. Tilson went on to date Madeline Brown.
Which, yeah, Madeline Brown, Bill, I don't know if you know Madeline Brown, but she said she had an with LBJ.
Yeah.
She's the one that had the story about the meeting supposedly at Murkison's house, and all these people. But over the years, the people kept getting added to the story, and it just, I don't find Madeline Brown credible at all.
Right. So that's the knock against Tom Tilson is like, well, I mean, but the point is, if you want to believe there was a Grassy Knoll shooter, there you go. There's your witnesses. I mean, you have the witnesses. I think that the ones that are the strongest that I rely on are the four on the bridge, because you got
Right.
four of them together,
Right.
and Lee Bowers,
Lee Bowers, yeah.
who's in
The railroad
the
yard.
observation
Yes.
tower. So he's in the observation tower,
Right.
and he says that he sees a flash of light and some strange activity going on over there, and he sees two guys standing by the fence line.
Right.
And it confirms what Ed Huffman says. Now he doesn't have the show-stopping stuff of the gun, okay?
Right.
And then the other thing, just to be fair on Lee Bowers, when he spoke to the Warren Commission, he says that he saw something strange going on there. It was later when he talked to Mark Lane that he puts in the flash of light. But also, if you study his testimony, they changed the topic. So he didn't have an opportunity to, that's what he says. Why didn't you mention this to the Warren Commission? Well, he didn't have an opportunity to mention it. They cut his testimony off. So, and then he died afterwards, which is a separate thing.
Yeah, he died in kind of suspicious circumstances, but
it was a one-car accident. But the problem is people go, okay, well, that was a heart attack. It was a one-car accident. Everything can't be suspicious. And I agree, everything can't be suspicious. You got to take them one at a time. But the problem is when the CIA rolls out their heart attack gun in front of the church committee,
right?
Like, okay, well, all bets are off now.
Everything's off. Yeah. Once that comes
I don't know.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
But so let's talk about, you talked there about the Secret Service. So Forrest Soils comes out and said that there was no Secret Service on the ground. They were all in the motorcade, which shows you how bad the security was that day. Even how a guy with an umbrella could get so close to the president.
Right.
I mean, it's ridiculous. But
Right.
you know, so if we take him at his word and there was no Secret Service on the ground, there was witnesses, I believe 4 or 5 witnesses, including law enforcement officials. You mentioned Joe Smith, who said that they encountered people with Secret Service credentials.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty.
Joe Smith to me is very credible.
Joe Smith and Seymour Weitzman are both very credible. I thought Seymour Weitzman, by the way, told a researcher that the guy that he saw on the grassy knoll. So let me zoom back. Okay. So Weitzman had a breakdown after the assassination in the 70s, and he basically went to like, a mental hospital. Okay.
Right.
And he was visited there by some researchers, and this is after Watergate. So they bring photos of the Watergate burglars to show him, to ask him, do you recognize any of these guys from, is this the guy you saw in the grassy knoll? Is this the guy? And he goes, that's the guy, for Bernard Barker.
Bernard Barker.
Seymour Weitzman says it was Bernard Barker, but keep in mind that's while he is in a mental institution under the influence of drugs, etc. So I don't know if we can trust what he's saying there, but I certainly trust everything he's saying before, because there's no reason not to, especially same day affidavits. And he's one of the guys that said there was a Mauser the whole time, and he used to be a manager at a gun store, and so he knew firearms. And what's crazy is people go, yeah, he said it was a Mauser, and then he found out he was mistaken, so he changed his position. And not so fast. Because actually, he put in his affidavit, which was filled out that afternoon, hours after all of this, that it was a Mauser. So why would he still put that?
Right.
We don't have a Mauser in evidence, but there's something going on there. Otherwise, I don't think the Mauser thing would have made it into the affidavits of Weitzman and Sheriff Boone if in fact there was no Mauser at all, because this is later in the day, so they would have been cleared up by then. Anyway, I went off track with the Mauser, but yeah.
And then there was also Sergeant Harkness too, saw Secret Service in back of the depository.
Yes, that's right. That's the other one I was leaving out. Sergeant Harkness. So there is a third one. There's another guy too who said that he saw him on the hill, whose name I can't recall. It's not Gordon Arnold. There's one more guy, but yeah, I mean, I think, like, to me, the Secret Service guy on the grassy knoll is one of those things. So just stepping back, in season 1, where we covered most of like the big disputed topics of like specific, of like same day evidence, let's call it, okay, not Oswald's backstory or who did it, but just like the evidence, right? And we look at 15 issues, and on 7 of them, I found that I don't know. there's evidence is exactly down the middle. Like if we're looking at just this issue, I don't know. But on 8 of them, I found this is enough. Like there's something going on here. This is the side that I'm on because there's something going on. Okay. And one of those things is that we see Secret Service on the grassy knoll, and then we have confirming evidence for it. In terms of just the puff of smoke, real quick, there was this whole back and forth I remember about like, well, guns don't provide are we talking about muskets from the Revolutionary War having a puff of smoke that comes out afterward? The guns are just smoking. And then I realized after actually it'd been a while since I shot and I'd done some target practice, like, wait a minute, there's not a puff of smoke after the shot's fired. That's the shot. People are seeing the shot itself.
Right. Exactly.
The shot itself
exactly
produces a little puff of smoke. It's not anything else. It's literally just the shot. And of course it's very light because there's a very, very small amount that's produced when you're firing a weapon. Yeah. So that all makes sense to me. That's consistent.
Right. Talk about Richard Carr.
Ooh, that's a good one. I haven't thought about him in a while. Richard Carr is I forget what exactly his job was. No, he was looking for a job, I believe is what it was.
He was looking for a job.
And he was in the county records building, which is basically it's diagonal from the school book depository, and he's up around the 6th floor, and he says that he sees 2 people in the 6th floor window. One of them is I forgot what the description of the one guy was. It might have been a white guy with a gun. But the other one was there was a guy with a brown sport coat on behind him, and these I forget the type of glasses, but there was a certain type of glasses the guy was wearing. And so he then sees the guy in the sport coat get into a vehicle and leave. And I forget if he sees him get in. I think he sees him get into a Rambler. It's been a minute since
It was a Rambler.
So,
Yeah.
he sees him get into a Rambler, which is consistent with the vehicle that 5
Roger
witnesses,
Craig. Right?
Yeah, including Roger Craig, see someone who looks just like Oswald get into. 3 of those 5 witnesses said that the person looked just like Oswald. But yeah, I mean, and then Carr has all these attempts on his life.
Right.
And multiple attempts.
Multiple attempts.
Including when he moves to like Montana or somewhere years later, there's they tried to blow up his car.
Yeah.
As a car bomb. I mean,
yeah, I mean,
so
incredible.
Yeah, I think that he saw something. Now, I don't know what, I mean, to me, it's like, yes, there were 2 people up there. Something's going on. It wasn't Oswald alone. But beyond that, it's okay. The Rambler thing, there's something to
it. Window though? Didn't he say they were at the opposite end window? They weren't at the window where Oswald supposedly shot from, right? Or am I thinking of something else?
No, I think you're right, and I think that's consistent with what Arnold Rowland said.
Right.
In terms of where they were. That's in one of my really early episodes.
Rollins, wasn't he a convict? Wasn't he in the jail cell?
No. Rowland and his wife were on Main Street. What's the street? It goes Main, and then there's a street, and then they turn onto Elm.
Houston?
Yeah, that's the one, Houston. So he's along Houston.
Okay.
And he sees the rifle barrel in the window at 12:15 when Oswald is seen by multiple people. Carolyn Arnold, most notable. Carolyn Arnold, is that who it is? I get Carolyn Arnold and Carolyn Walther confused. Carolyn Arnold says that she saw him at 12:15. She actually went back and said, no, it's actually 12:25 when I saw him, by the way. But the point is, Oswald couldn't be up there at 12:15. And the counter argument is, well, Rowland must be mistaken and his watch was off. Okay. It's like the counter argument to a lot of things I find is that time doesn't matter and there is no time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I don't know what to tell
you. What about Orville Nix and filming the video and whether or not this video was altered?
The Orville, I'm not sure if I know a ton about the and I'm aware of the Orville Nix video and what it shows, but tell me, yeah, the backstory about it. I don't know if I know a
I
lot
think
about
there was
that.
a claim, if I remember correctly, there was a claim that Nix got the video back, I believe, and he said that Nick
Okay,
says it was altered when he got it back.
okay.
Because
I remember what you're
was
talking
Nix
about.
the one that um would have showed the depository, right? Would have showed that window where Oswald
Yeah,
supposedly was shooting from, according to official
yeah.
story. And when Nix gets the film back, that's not there anymore. I'm remembering that right. I believe that's what. Sometimes all this
Wow.
stuff runs
Yeah,
together.
yeah, yeah, yeah. He claimed that it was altered because there are frames that
Right.
are missing from the video. And yeah, I that wouldn't be surprising to me at all. I mean, um, who else got their Mary Mormon, and she had some. I mean, some of her photos were returned, but some of them weren't. It was my
Right.
recollection. So yeah. So my apologies. It's been
No, I
it's been a
understand.
minute since I. Right now I'm my brain is full of like backyard photo, General Walker, New Orleans. So this is where
Oh,
I'm
I
at
hear you.
right
I
now.
hear you. And I
So
just
yeah,
the name. Sometimes these names just pop in your head, but I think the name that we were searching for before the secrets that seen the Secret Service agent wasn't that Summers? Was it Malcolm
that's
Summers?
it. That's it. Malcolm
Okay.
Summers, you got it. That's the one.
And
Hmm.
then what about another witness that I think was really credible was Newman. Was it Bill Newman?
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
he was on the grassy knoll with his son in the grass, and he covered his son because and
Hmm.
he was a vet, so he's seen combat. He knows what it's like
That's
to
right.
hear gunshots and be shot at.
And he
So
said it was from
he said it
behind
was
him.
behind, right?
Yeah, and he was right there on the hill. They're the
Right.
family that you see these reporters taking pictures of right away. Uh, it's like,
Incredible.
hey, the president was just killed. What do these people think about it? Yeah.
And what about the fellow Brennan? He's an interesting
Yeah.
character.
So yeah, Howard Brennan is the prime witness for Oswald being in the window with the gun. He's in fact the only witness that says
Right.
Oswald was in the window. And the second best witness to put Oswald on the sixth floor is what's the guy's name? Oh, his name's escaping me. Um he's the guy who had maybe the drug charge, and they tried to but he like changed his story after the fact. Man, I'm losing his name. But anyway, the point is the second best witness that they have, all he does is put Oswald on the sixth floor around noon.
Right.
Okay. But that's not putting it. And by the way, we know that that's inconsistent with other testimony, like we just talked about. So really, we're just left with Brennan. And so okay, so what's Brennan saying? Brennan is leaning up against the fountain that is in Dealey Plaza. That's about, I don't know, 200 yards across the street, 150 yards across the street from the Texas School Book Depository, but he's looking up at the sixth floor from that spot. I went there and looked up the sixth floor to see like would I be able to identify someone's face that I hadn't seen before in a lineup? And the answer is the hardest possible no. Okay.
No.
But I do think that like you could tell, okay, like maybe if you had really good eyesight, you could be like, was it, did they have glasses on? Was it
Right.
a white person or a light skinned person?
But didn't
Were
he
they
also give
bald
the
or
height and
not?
weight too? Which is
Yeah,
a
he gave
possible.
he
That's a
gave all this
possible.
information. He also said that the way that he talked about how Oswald was standing wouldn't have been, or how the way he described seeing him is not consistent with the way that like the sniper's nest was set up, so that it also doesn't fit. But the biggest problem with Brennan is that when he was asked to identify Oswald on the night of the assassination, he goes, "I don't know who this guy. No, I can't help you. It doesn't look familiar. Doesn't ring a bell." And then he changed his statement for the Warren Commission, and they said, "Well, why didn't you tell the police this?" And he said, "I was afraid that there was a conspiracy, so I didn't want to get
Wow.
killed."
Wow.
So anyway, the point is the prime witness. If this was a trial, they would just be totally destroyed because number
Totally.
one, it's impossible that you could have. I believe that he saw. I actually believe that Howard Brennan saw somebody in the window. Okay. I don't have evidence that like someone told him to say this and all this stuff. I just think that, well, I mean, before the fact, I don't have evidence, right? But I just think he saw somebody, and he probably saw a white guy, and he wanted to be helpful. He couldn't identify him, and then they said, "Hey, you saw him, right? You know, we need you to help your country. There's no conspiracy. It was just him. We have all this evidence that proves it." And I'm sure he was like, "Yeah, I want to help my country." It's probably that simple, really, you know.
But if somebody's kneeling down in a window in a sniper position, there's no way you could tell his height and weight. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Exactly.
Ridiculous.
Exactly. No, that's right. That's right.
And going back to the Mormon photo, when we talked about, the Badgeman and when Mormon didn't get the photo back, right? Mormon didn't get, because I believe that showed the school book depository too. Some of her photos would have showed that. I believe there was an FBI report on that.
Um,
They were never returned to her, I
yeah.
believe.
Well, let's see. The FBI had the picture. Oh, here's what it is. Yeah, Mary Moore, she took another important photo, and it had the school book depository in
Right.
the background, right at the moment of around when the shots were fired. And they returned the grassy knoll picture, but they never returned the other photo. So there you go.
Right.
And there's an FBI report that shows that that
That's it.
did exist because a guy named Bill Wiseman talks about it. He says he says, quote, "I got all these pictures and I looked at them, and in one picture Miss Mormon had taken a picture of the lead motorcycle officer. In the background of this picture was the Sexton building, which is the school book depository, and the window where the gunman sat when doing the shooting." Holy crap. So we we have this
Wow.
photo. Why is it not, if it doesn't show anything other than a white guy in alone in the, in the window, then why don't we have it? And the
Right.
answer is
Exactly.
because that's not what it shows, is my
Right.
guess.
And I believe that was never mentioned in the Warren Commission, right?
Correct.
That's
Unbelievable.
unbelievable.
So again,
Wow.
like you can write off a couple of these things, right? Let's say you're someone who believes, like once you study it enough, you start to disbelieve other institutional representations, let's
Sure.
say. But I get it. I get that you could believe the official story, like I say, and write off one or two things as a conspiracy, but or I mean as a coincidence. But as you start to follow it, it's like, wait, it's weird that the coincidences only go one way.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty strange. So yeah.
Um, let's talk about George de Mohrenschildt for a little bit.
Yeah, let's go.
So we know de Mohrenschildt had a connection going with Alan Dulles. Alan Dulles actually knew him from when he was 10 years old. When de Mohrenschildt was 10 years old, he has a connection to his father. And de Mohrenschildt puts himself right in this story as a best friend of Oswald. And it's interesting because de Mohrenschildt is a white Russian and
Yeah,
Oswald is this supposed communist, and these are ideologies are totally different. They're
right.
totally opposite. I mean, the White Russians hated the communists.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, and the Warrensheld it would later be revealed that it was J. Walter Moore who asked him as a favor to reach out to Oswald. The J.
Right.
Walter Moore, of course, was a section chief for the CIA in Dallas.
Right.
Talk about the murder, the Warrensheld, because
Hmm.
I recently heard you. I believe you said that you feel that it may be a suicide now. You're
Yeah.
leaning towards it could be a suicide, not a murder.
My most controversial take in the history of the show. Truly, like I've never had more people that listen to the show be mad at me or disagree with me. Um, and here's what I'm saying. I just want to be super clear. Uh, Looking at all the evidence, all right, we got to figure out what's most likely. So like I
Sure,
hate Occam's razor because it's what people say to deny anything that's not the official story. But I like the premise of it, which is the thing that's most likely is probably true. I think when you use that at like the sub issue level, when you're zoomed in to one particular granular question, that is helpful, right? So on the DeMornshield death, here's where I agree with everybody. It's suspicious. Okay, so
sure.
he and DeMornshield's whole background with Oswald and Haitian oil contracts and intelligence. I mean, this guy is just a really fascinating character. But the way he is actually giving an interview to Edward Epstein, where it's actually one of his more revealing interviews. Is the one where he talks about J. Walton Moore. He went to go meet Oswald because he thought it would help him get the oil contract, and he thought it's what J. Walton Moore wanted him to do. Excuse me. But Gaten Fonzie from the HSCA is an investigator. He's going to interview DeMorenschildt, and he stops by the house where DeMorenschildt's staying. It's a beach house in Manalapan, Florida, and he gives his card to DeMorenschildt's daughter because he was not home at the moment. And DeMorenschildt comes home. The daughter tells him about it. Apparently, he's distraught over it. Goes upstairs, and there's a single gunshot a single gunshot's fired. It's a shotgun, and he's got a big hole in his head. Okay, so here's the argument in favor of homicide. All right, the homicide argument is the timing is suspicious. Okay, and obviously, it sounds like they wanted to stop DeMorenschildt from testifying, and obviously the way you do that is you kill him. So, okay, I agree with that. But we got to have some evidence. All right. So what evidence is there? All we have is the homeowner recorded, the homeowner asked the maid to record a soap opera, the audio of it, her favorite soap opera. And, it's before DVR. So in that recording, we can hear the gunshot, but we also can hear, like, apparently, it depends on whose representations, who says it, but I want to say Mark Lane says it's within like just moments before, 30 seconds or so before, a minute or so before, you hear these 5 little beeps, and Lane said that sounds like a home security system. They had a coroner's inquest in whatever the county where Manalapan is on DeMorenschildt's murder. And one of the jurors at the coroner's inquest raised that issue. She said they played the tape, and she said that's a security alarm. And then the authorities said, we're not going to look at that. I don't want to hear about it. We're not going down that road. That's suspicious. I agree. So I'm with everybody that thinks that's suspicious. What I'm saying is there's not enough. That's just beeps. Like, it was never followed through. It was never looked into. Now, what's hilarious is, not hilarious, but it's sort of file it under like that makes sense. The tape is now nowhere to be found. All the links that go to it are dead on YouTube because the account that hosted this video, it got deleted somehow. So I can't find it anywhere. I couldn't find it anywhere to include it. It's not around, which is, that's a little suspicious. But okay, so here's why I landed on the suicide. And it's actually not if you zoom into what I'm saying, I'm making a conspiracy argument. Okay.
Okay.
He starts visiting. So DeMorenschildt had chronic bronchitis. He starts visiting a doctor in Dallas in the summer of 1977. So a year before his death. Okay. And this doctor is Dr. Charles Mendoza. Okay. Shows up out of nowhere. Jean DeMorenschildt says that she was referred to Dr. Mendoza, but doesn't remember by who. That's a big question. If we could figure that out, that would be helpful, but we don't know that. Okay. Anyway. So DeMorenschildt goes to this Mendoza guy, cures his bronchitis or makes it better. That's no problem. But says that he needs to keep coming back to him and starts giving him these injections, okay, these shots. And there's no reason for him to even be visited. There's no reason to get the shots. And the doctor won't say what the shots are. So his wife's like, what are these shots that you're getting? And so she pressures him to stop the treatment. And coinciding with when he's getting these shots, he starts to like have a mental breakdown. Okay. And he actually has 4 attempts on his life. He tries to kill himself 4 times in 1977. And he's actually, they put him in a mental institution. Okay. Now this doctor, Charles Mendoza, like a month after DeMorenschildt stops seeing him, skips town and leaves a fake address with the Dallas County Medical Society and is never seen again. Vanished. We don't know anything about this guy. He's gone.
Wow.
Okay. But he basically caused DeMorenschildt to have this mental break. And then, he's he's visiting with his daughter at this beach house in Manalapan, which incidentally is a home that's owned by the sister of one of his ex-wives. He had a lot of ex-wives. And anyway, he told his daughter a week or two before his death that he was thinking about killing himself. And he had 4 prior attempts the year before. So I'm saying I think I think that Dr. Mendoza giving him these shots was done to get him to try to become suicidal so that he would kill himself. That to me is more likely than there being an intruder based only on potential beeps with nothing else. That's all I'm saying.
And you know what, you do see that in a lot of these cases. You've seen Dr. Jolyon West goes to see Jack Ruby and scrambles his brain. You see what the doctors did to Sirhan. You see what the doctors did to Mark Chapman. You see it
Yeah.
in all these cases where these doctors, scramble. So I see what you're saying. And to me, the death of DeMornsheld is important because whether it's a suicide or whether it's a murder, the reason for it is because of his contact with Lee Harvey Oswald, in my
I
opinion.
think there's
So
foul
that's why it's
play.
important.
Yeah, I think there's foul play. The question is it Mendoza or is it somebody else that day?
Sure.
I could be wrong. It could someone else could have killed him. I just don't think that I think given the evidence we have, I pick Mendoza. That's all I'm saying.
Mendoza's an angle that really needs to be researched more.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
Yeah.
don't have the
For
information.
sure. Yeah.
Definitely, I agree with you
Yeah.
because you
So
see that in these
I
cases.
I don't believe that it was a non-Mendoza related suicide. How about that?
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
And I
Yeah.
think that needs to definitely be investigated more.
Me too.
So Matt, we've been talking a long time here, but the last thing I really want to get to, I don't know, Bill, do you have anything before I get to the last?
No,
Hey, actually,
no, nothing.
can I bring up one thing?
Sure,
Sure, go
I
ahead.
might potentially break some news here.
Uh-oh.
So I had a guy, and I haven't announced this yet. I think I'm going to probably pretty soon, but aside from what I'm doing right now,
Okay.
I had a guy reach out to me on Instagram, and turns out he's Buddy Walters' grandson.
Oh,
Okay. Now,
wow.
I had to vet things, so I'm just Googling this guy, and it all checks out. He really is. Oh, wow, it's amazing. Anyway, so, I'm asking him some things about, well, your grandma said one thing and your grandpa said something else, and what's what? And so he's like, no. He definitely picked up a 4th bullet, and he just didn't want to get killed. Like, my family knows that. But here's what's interesting. He has a document that was in his grandfather's effects that he sent to me, and it's the visitor log of all of the doctors who met with Ruby in jail and the days
Wow.
and times they met with him. And he says, to his knowledge, it's never been released.
Wow.
And Jolly West is on there
Wow.
3 times.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh,
And Jolly,
Yeah.
I see the book behind you, Matt. I see chaos there.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah.
course, Jolly West pops up essential in that case with Charles Manson.
Yeah. Dude, Jolly West is some look, I'm not trying to go deep down this road, but for whatever reason, Jolly West is visiting with Timothy McVeigh within days of him being arrested at the federal prison or the facility where they were holding him. Why is he meeting with Timothy McVeigh? What's happening?
Wow.
He connects directly to Sidney Gottlieb, who was the MK Ultra doctor in charge.
Right. And Charles Manson, of course, from the great
Right.
Tom O'Neill book. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's something, man. It's crazy. So anyway, I'm going to share that document. I'm going to send it around to, I haven't sent that to Eugenio and the boys yet, but because I just want to make sure that like, I wouldn't want to be like, hey, here's this new document, and then have somebody send me the Mary Farrell link, be like, here,
Right.
dummy.
Wow, that's fascinating, though.
Yeah.
Fascinating. But the last thing I want to talk about is in Chokeholds, chapter 4 that you were involved in.
Yeah.
How Oswald could not have been on the 6th floor.
Yes. Chokeholds. We got it right here.
It's up on our bookshop. People could get it on our bookshop. It's a fantastic book.
Yeah,
Yep.
thank you, man.
Yep.
Appreciate it. Yeah, man, I was so lucky that I was invited to be a part of this. When I went down to Dallas for this conference in 2022, it was right when I knew I was going to get serious about doing this podcast. And my goal was to just meet Eugenio, to be like, hey, I've got this, like, to just somehow be able to have an interaction with him. And all this crazy, chain of events happening that we ended up going to, having 4 meals together And it was just wild. And the
Oh,
book came out of it. So it's like and now the guy's a friend, and I brought him to Cincinnati for a speaking engagement, and then I drove him from Cincinnati to Pittsburgh. So I mean, I was like that. I'm asking him like every question I'd ever had.
yeah, he's really a great guy.
And he'll either go either he's like, yeah, that's about right, or he'll get mad at you if he disagree. You'll be like, what do you think about Roscoe White? He'll be like, Jesus Christ, Roscoe White. If you want to really make him mad, you'd be like, Jim, I heard there was this meeting at the Murchison Ranch. Good God, Matt. Are you kidding?
You can bring up James Files. That'll get him aggravated too.
But
But
no,
he
but
is a great guy. Jim is a
yeah.
great guy, and we've had him on several times. And
Yeah. He's a good man. All right. But and my other co-authors are wonderful too. It's just that Jim's reputation preceded him with me. But at any rate, yeah, Oswald couldn't have been on the sixth floor, and the shots were fired. I mean, okay, so just zooming back out here. People want to know, all right, you think Oswald is the lone shooter. Okay, so who are your witnesses that put him on the sixth floor? Because that's going to be important. Okay. And the answer, we talked about it, it's Howard Brennan. That's all you got. Charles
Right.
Givens is the guy I was trying to think about earlier.
Givens, okay,
Charles
yeah.
Givens. But you know, this chapter basically it's timestamps when everybody says they saw Oswald. And it kind of shows that and there's different like for example 12:15 Carolyn Arnold says that she saw Oswald according to the Warren Commission or an FBI report or whatever the official story is. But then later when Earl Goals from the Dallas Morning News interviews her, she says no, I said 12:25, and I said it was on the second floor, not the first floor.
Right.
And if that's the case, so if you believe her, then it's impossible that he was there. But okay, there's no witnesses that see him going up to the sixth floor ever, unless you want to say Charles Givens. But that's actually Charles Givens doesn't see him up there. Charles Givens says that he asks for the elevator to be sent back up. So it's not. You kind of really have to parse things if you want Charles Givens to be your evidence. So okay, and then we have we don't. And there's no evidence for him bringing the gun in either. By the way, all you have is Frazier. Jack Doherty standing there by the door, and he's like, no, I didn't see anything. Now the counterpoint is he's like, I didn't pay attention closely. Okay. But he didn't, but nobody ever saw him with a gun except for Frazier. And Frazier says, as we all know, that it wasn't a gun. It was
right.
The length of it was way too short to possibly be a gun.
Right.
You even broken down. But the main thing is, I would say the Victoria Adams testimony,
right?
Sandra Stiles,
and then Dorothy Gardner backing that
Dorothy Garner, their supervisor. That's right. And basically they said that right after the shooting, before the car went under the overpass, they started to run down the stairs.
Right.
And as we all know, a minute and 18 seconds. So the FBI recreated the path of Officer who's the cop that
Marion Baker.
Marion Baker, yeah. So the FBI recreated the path of Marion Baker, and it would have taken him a minute and 18 seconds to get from there to from where he was when the shots were fired to the second floor. And they said it would have taken Oswald a minute and it would have taken Oswald a minute 14. It would have taken Baker a minute 18. So they're saying he would have got there 4 seconds before, but he's got a Coke in his hand. And Baker and Truly say that he was like, totally composed. But yeah, Stiles and Adams, they're going down the stairs. Oswald should have been in that same stairwell at the same time if the FBI's theory is to be consistent. And they didn't see Oswald there. And the other thing is, Garner, their boss, later said that she saw Truly and Baker come up the stairs after the girls had gone down. So that confirms the timestamp. Now there is a big counterpoint here. There's a big counterpoint. Okay. That's why I think it's important to know all the arguments, because you can't just go, oh, hey, look at us, we're getting it, we're solving it. Well, the counterpoint is you can't believe anything that she's saying because she's obviously wrong, and here's why she's wrong. And that is that she says that when she got down to the bottom, she saw Billy Lovelady and another guy whose name escapes me. I haven't looked at it in a minute, but these two guys, and she says she saw him when she got down at the bottom of the stairs. But they actually went over to the rail yard. They went over to kind of see what the commotion was all about behind the fence, and so they must have gone to the rail yard and come back for her to see them. Which, if that's true, her timeline is much later, right? So does that make sense?
Sure.
And so the Warren, in her testimony, in her Warren Commission testimony, it says that she saw Lovelady and the other guy at the bottom of the stairs. But she says that she didn't say that.
Right.
She says she didn't say that. So, but then the problem is she signed the deposition, okay, that says that she saw that, which would undermine her testimony. But then the counter to the counter to the counter is she goes, well, I was pressured. They made me do it. They told me I had to do it. I didn't have an option.
Right.
So that's kind of where it lands is, well, what do you think about that? But even because if you think that she's telling the truth, then it is a chokehold, and that's why we put it in the book. I do think she's telling the truth. I don't think she has a reason to lie.
And Gardner's an important witness because the Warren Commission had, hid that testimony of Gardner.
That's right.
Because
it came
they
out
understood.
After the fact.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
They understood how important her testimony was.
I learned about that for the first time in Jim and Oliver's recent film. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's Enough Out of You is also sponsored by Case Quattro Winery, featuring over 20 flavors of wine, from dry red, dry white, and fruit for your sampling pleasure. Case Quattro Winery offers entertainment, parties, and private events. Now serving a full menu with a little something for everyone, including appetizers, salads, dinners, pizza, and desserts. Case Quattro has some of the best live entertainment in the area, with comedy and karaoke nights and live bands. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram for all of our upcoming events. And if you mention the code OUTA, that's OUTTA, you get 15% off of your order. Located on Main Street in Peckville, Pennsylvania, call 570-382-3855 for more information. And we thank Case Quattro Winery for their support. And we would like to thank our sponsor, Gracious Day Grains. Sean, you like to eat healthy, don't you?
Always, buddy. I try to eat healthy as much as I can.
Yeah, and there is nothing healthier than what they call like farm to table, right? So when you can get something right from the ground and make it and then put it right on your table. And Gracious Day Grains, they have a tremendous selection, and it's totally organic. Everything is, they don't use any sort of herbicides or pesticides or anything like that. They have a bunch of different products on their website, Gracious Day Grains. So if you go to graciousdaymilling.com, you'll find a bunch of great stuff there, Sean.
Yeah, you will, Billy. And it's owned by Tom Maxey, who's a great guy from Virginia. He's a truth seeker, just like me and you, buddy. And Tom's growing philosophy follows the wisdom of farmers of centuries past. And a quote from Tom is, "If we practice the right rotations, we exclude the bugs and weeds without needing herbicides or pesticides." So, I mean, this is great, Billy. I mean, what he's doing is fantastic.
There's cornbread mix, there's cornmeal, popcorn he sells, buckwheat Sean, have you had buckwheat pancakes?
No, buddy.
Oh my, they're delicious. I love buckwheat pancakes. And Gracious Day Grains sells buckwheat pancakes. Just go to their website and you'll be able to find all of this stuff there. You can order it right off the website. You can find out all about how they farm and their whole philosophy, Tom's philosophy. It's great stuff.
It really is, Billy. And one of the things he does is he grinds small batches at very low temperatures, which retains the flavor and the freshness.
of course. And I mean, it can't get any fresher than that. I mean, it's literally right from the ground. So again, go to graciousdaymilling.com and just, take a look on there. You can order whatever you want, and they'll send it right to your door. I mean, again, it doesn't get any fresher than that, right from Tom's farm to your door to your table. So
absolutely. And eat healthy, and you'll feel better.
Absolutely. I wish I could do that. I wish I could eat healthier, Sean.
We'll start with Tom's stuff, buddy.
I'm going to order some of those buckwheat pancakes. I love
There you go. I'm going to try them too, Billy.
Yeah, they're really good. All right. Gracious Day. We thank Gracious Day Grains for their sponsorship.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I think that's why, a lot of people, I phrase it sometimes like, was it Oswald alone? I don't think Oswald fired a shot at all.
No, I don't.
But I think that he's involved in that. He's in the world of intelligence, and
sure.
But I don't think he did he know there was a plot that day? Is he the lead that informed the FBI that there was going to be an attempt on Kennedy? Like, I really truly wonder, like we all do, like, what did Oswald know? What did he really know? Because
right.
I heard Mark from America's Untold Stories was saying that, like, wait a minute, we know Marina's KGB, which, the CIA's got this document. Here's 29 reasons why Marina was KGB. This is a CIA document. So, okay, well, CIA thinks she was. And okay, there's a lot of good evidence to show that Oswald was intelligence, which is a whole separate episode for us to dive into, a whole separate chapter of Chokeholds. But then you've got Michael Payne and Ruth Payne, and if they're both intelligence, it's like, what's everybody do? What a weird little game of, like, just agents playing each other. Like, that is really, it's like a fascinating TV show. Like, what is this? This is crazy. If that's what it is, I don't know. We're trying to speculate on, like, what's going on inside these people's heads to an extent. Yeah.
I think Oswald, if you're the conspirators, Oswald was so important, and because of the fact that he had ties to a lot of different agencies, including the CIA, FBI. He was being used by a lot of different agencies, the Cuban exiles, of course, both sides, the pro-Castro, the anti-Castro, had a lot of different ties. So I think a lot of it goes back to what John Newman talked about with the 201 file.
Yes.
When you are tying Oswald to all these things, and then, when it comes out that Oswald is the assassin, everybody's going to go into cover your own ass mode. So,
right.
So people who aren't maybe involved in the actual assassination, they're going to be complicit in the cover-up because they want to cover their own connection to Oswald.
Sure.
So it's like he calls it a virus, when he talks about Costa Cove and the Mexico City trip. And that to me is so important because, Oswald, just think about the reaction of people who were using Oswald in actual, say, missions against the actual communists, against the Cuban consulate. And then they find out this is the guy that killed the president.
Yeah.
Did the KGB flip one of her own to murder our commander in chief?
Right.
So even though they weren't involved in the actual plot, they're going to be involved in covering up.
Right.
They're involved.
Well, yeah. And that's another thing. It's like people talk about, well, how many thousands of people would have had to lie? Did this FBI agent lie? Like, how many FBI agents are in the reports, and how many cops are in the report? Like, how many have to lie? A fair amount, a few. But then when you realize that they have a good reason to, that's not nefarious, right? The reason is what what LBJ told Earl Warren to get him to serve, which is, look, you got some evidence here that's going to point to an international conspiracy with Russia. And then, like, we're going to have to retaliate. They're going to retaliate. A lot of people are going to die. So you got to just sweep this under the rug because you love your country.
Right.
And so it's like the onion peel theory. It's like there's the stuff for the general public to know. There's the stuff for the insiders who really need to know. And then there's the truth.
Right.
And it was so easy at that time to convict him in the public. I mean, essentially that the cover of Time, what was it, Time magazine or Life magazine, the cover of the Life with him with the rifle, that essentially did it. I mean, there was no there was no trial. There was nobody knew anything about him other than, than what they were told. And then they see that picture and they think, okay, well, this guy had a rifle. This is the rifle apparently that did the killing. Has to be him. And, case closed.
Right. Well, exactly. And then the counter argument that people hit me with for Oswald couldn't have been in place on the 6th floor. No one's got a rebuttal to show that he was in place. Okay. What they point to is, well, okay, we don't have any evidence to show that he was in place. And you're right. Howard Brennan was from far away. We just don't have the evidence. But here's what we do have. We've got paperwork showing he ordered the rifle. We've got the rifle that the same paperwork shows he ordered sitting there. We have his fingerprints, which when you zoom into that, what they mean is fingerprints on boxes that he would pick up as part of his job, and a palm print that came on an index card a week later. That's what they mean by that. But the point is, like, and he shot at General Walker, and there's the backyard photo, like you said, and then there's this like guilty sounding note vis-a-vis General Walker.
Right.
And Marina says that he basically did everything, right? So you have all of that. Like, I get it why surface level, why someone could think that Oswald did it alone. 1,000%. It makes a ton of sense. You just gotta
again, there was
deeper.
and there was nothing else. In the minds of the average, citizen, there was nothing else to show.
Well, that had a lot to do with
today,
the media.
If it happened today, there would be 10,000 angles of it on Twitter within 2 minutes.
Right.
But at that time there was no video, there was no photographs, there was no the eyewitness accounts were so different and so scattered all over the place because there was so much confusion.
Right.
It was
very
easy.
The media was pounding Oswald did it. The media,
right, of course,
Oswald.
Of course.
I mean, one thing that's great about the JFK case for a lawyer in particular is there's so much evidence that was created, and it was created at a time when people could not foresee the internet coming. And so they really thought they could say whatever they want to say. We're not going to declassify these files. Get out of here. We'll never declassify these files. And I think they did destroy, and to the extent there's anything that's real smoking gun, like there's not going to be a document that was like, OJ, if I did it. It's not going to be like that. Like, there's not going to be a memo from Alan Dulles that says, kill JFK. Here's how.
Right. Of course.
That doesn't exist. But they made enough mistakes. People, people are human. They would make mistakes. We'd be able to find, those mistakes. And that's true. We did. Okay. And I think, it's the thing. It's like, he had to be intelligence because, like you were saying, the 201 file. And just super quickly on that, the way Oswald came to the CIA's attention is that they're reading his mail. As I forgot the name of the Project Redskin, not Redskin. It's another.
There was Red Scare, Redskin. There was a couple different.
Something lingual.
Yeah.
But anyway, he's having his mail read because he's a defector. He's a potential, communist, whatever. So that makes sense. While he's in the Soviet Union, but they don't open a 201 file while the CIA is reading his mail. And so, Richard Helms was asked about that, and he's like, "That's not possible. What are you talking about? We would have opened. This doesn't sound right." And what turns out what happened, and also another reason that people say, Posner, I've read, says that there's no. Oswald was not CIA because the folks at Soviet Russia and the CIA Soviet Russia division said they didn't know anything about him. True.
That's
true. They didn't know anything about him. Why? Why didn't they know anything about him?
Because he was tagged to go. Everything on him was tagged to go to the Office of Security.
That's right. And the Office of that's right. And which is this office that spies on spies.
Right. And that was Angleton and the SIG.
Yes, Sheffield Edwards, who I believe is one of the OGs, along with Richard Nixon, with getting the mafia involved with the CIA.
But when that came in through the Office of Mail Logistics, it should have went to the
correct
division. That's where it should have went, but it didn't.
And that routing is conclusive. That is a chokehold. There's also the Otto Atepka story.
Yes.
That we cover, which is it also confirms that, like, super long story short, the head of security for the passport office noticed that there's all these sudden defections
Right.
of Americans to the Soviet Union, and he realized, wait a minute, the Soviets have a false defector program, and we keep busting them.
Right.
I'm sure we're doing the same thing to them because all of a
Just trying to
sudden
know
we've
which
seen this
ones are
spike
fake
in
and which
numbers.
weren't.
Yeah, so he's like, I don't want to step on CIA's toes, so I got to know like which of these are your guys. So he sends a list of 18, gets batted around within CIA, and when it comes down to it, the lady who's doing the research is told, don't look at these 7 names. We already got back to him on those. Just do these 11. And Oswald's on the list of the 7 names.
And
what's that?
His life gets turned upside down.
Oh yeah.
That he gets hit with all these
Otto
charges
Otepka.
against him. Yeah.
His boss broke into his safe because he was still looking into the issue, and he
Right.
lost his security clearance. He was fired 3 weeks before the assassination.
Right.
And much like Admiral Berkeley, he reached out to the press saying he wanted to talk about the conspiracy, and then they followed up, and he said, "Never mind, I'm good. I don't have anything to say."
Right.
So, yeah.
All right,
that's
Matt.
something.
Fantastic stuff, man.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
This has been great. Yeah, so Chokeholds, the book, that's for sale on our bookstore and wherever you can get
It's
your
up
books. The Paramount
yeah.
Plus JFK, What the Doctor Saw.
And check
Yes,
out
sir.
that
You can see Matt
podcast.
there, and then of course the podcast, Solving
Right.
JFK.
That's right, man. That's right. Solving JFK. So yeah, thanks guys for having me on. I love talking about this stuff, and I'm gonna keep doing it until I get to the end, and then I won't have it solved. But I think I'll know a lot of stuff, and I'll know the right questions to keep asking. So there you go.
Well, your
keep going.
podcast is great, man. I'm gonna
Yep.
keep watching, and we'll have you back to discuss more as you put out more episodes.
Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure, and talk to you soon. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, take
Thanks.
care. Thanks, Matt.
All right, cool. Cheers.
That's Enough Out of You podcast is executive produced and written by Bill Rader and Sean Kane and edited by Bill Rader. The That's Enough Out of You podcast and logo are exclusive property of Bags of Chicken, LLC. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or accounts of this podcast without the express written consent of Bags of Chicken, LLC is prohibited. So don't even try it.